Once again, welcome all of you have joined. Yeah, for us, so before we get into, yeah, so as we get into the idea of livelihoods and like how it became relevant for us, we would like to begin with the context or the premise of uh, like why we are having to think about um, you know this idea of livelihoods. Uh, so So for us, the context comes from the multiple and plural converging crises that we are facing. To begin with, one is the increasing inequalities. So we see that mm, in India and across the world, that fewer and fewer people are holding more and more wealth. And in India, like 1% of population owns around 33% of the nation's wealth, and 5% of Indians own over 60% of the nation's wealth. And in the country, as of now, if you are someone who earns 25,000 rupees a month, that puts you in the top 10% of the earning population. And whether 25,000 is a livable wage or not is another question. But that shows us the degree of inequality, income inequality that we have in the country. And we are also seeing that a lot of jobs are being replaced with either technology or cheaper labor. And this is something we also saw during the COVID times, the COVID lockdown times, as people, like a lot of people underwent layoffs, and but it wasn't difficult for like these big companies to find new people, uh, bec- because like with the income inequalities going on and the unemployment rates increasing, so there's always that options and opportunities find cheaper labor. And with the advent of AI again, it is expected that it's going to affect more and more jobs and livelihoods. So at this point, like, would like to take us back to the idea of like what Gandhi proposed, or what he shared, that like how machinery or technology that saves labor, eventually it ends with removing the laborer from the work. And like in any machinery or in technology that supports the laborer is welcome, but something that removes the laborer from the workforce in itself is something to be questioned. And this is like a favorite quote of mine from this movie called Before Sunrise, that like people always talk about how great technology is and how it saves all the time, but what good is saved time if nobody uses it? It just turns into more busy work. And we are also at a phase where we are experiencing different forms of climate emergencies. And we see that climate crisis is not the larger crisis, but it's only a symptom of something bigger, a symptom of the larger crisis, which is probably in the economic model. So yeah, we can see that like about like top 1% of people accounted for more than 15% of global emissions, while the bottom 50% of people accounts to only about like 10% of the global emissions. So there is an inequality. So the inequality that we talked about earlier is also reflected in how people are affected by the climate crisis. Um, so to give an example, in the kind of floods that happened in Pakistan in 2022, um, and Pakistan is not a country which contributes much to the climate crisis. And anywhere in the world, the most vulnerable cities or countries or towns or places are the ones who don't really who or who contributes very very less to the increase or the cause or to the cause of climate crisis. And even in India, if we take it is the coastal regions and the mountain regions that are the most vulnerable, and these are also the regions who contributes the least to the climate impact. And we are also going through a crisis of health, where like as humanity, we are having like our health outcomes are turning bad day by day, and it is all in the air we breathe, the food we eat, the water we drink, and so on. And we see that like our health is tied to the health of the land, and that our well-being is tied to the well-being of other humans, flora, fauna, microbes, and all ecosystems. And yeah, so these are just like some of the examples of the crises that we wanted to share. But like across spectrums, like in ecology, we are facing biodiversity loss, climate emergencies, pollution is ever on the rise, and in the socio-economic front, increasing inequalities, deprivation, and inequity in access to resources. In the political front, we are facing like various kinds of conflicts, authoritarianism, domination, which is also in the cultural trend, domination in the form of colonization, homogenization, and increasing conflicts. And at the individual levels, at the personal levels, we as a whole like are experiencing further alienation, depression, meaninglessness, hopelessness, and so on. So while at this, one might ask, is there hope? What and where do we find hope then? And this is also a word that we have been hearing very recently, eco-anxiety. It is the worry about the climate impact and like how it is going to affect humanity as a whole. And it's very apparent among the younger people who are directly affected by it and who are thinking about their future. And there are a lot of people who are also like acting upon it. It's evident from the various climate rallies and protests for conservation of landscapes that are happening across the country. And also in 2020, when the union government got in a draft or like an edit to the environmental impact assessments law, stating that so a clearance or a impact assessment is not really required for a project which is which is in the interest of the nation. And when also the what the interest of the nation is was also not clearly defined, and it was only available in two languages, and it was a lot of young people from across the country, people in their late teens and early 20s who translated the document into multiple Indian languages so that more people could be aware of what is happening and voice out their concerns. And we too have been receiving a lot of emails asking for opportunities in different livelihood paths that they could probably take, um, while acknowledging a sustainable way of living and being in the nature. So that we have been seeing that a lot of young people are concerned and are wanting to act upon it. So in this situation, what could be the possible pathways? Is a question that is in front of us, and where do we find hope in? So one is that of resistance and reform movements, and another is that of reimagining and recreating constructive alternatives. So resistance is about working on the current system and engaging with the current system, voicing out or calling out the problems or issues in the current system. Um, and reform work is about working within the current system and trying to make small changes in the existing machinery that is there. Um, and while doing this, we can also reimagine or conceptualize newer systems, newer ways of being and doing, and also actually be creating them, creating constructive alternatives, different other ways of being and doing from the one that is mainstream and dominant and exploitative and extractive at the moment. While at this, there are also three other approaches in terms of how individuals and communities could align their habits. So one is about right utilization of the resources that they have access to, and another is about protection, conservation of resources and habitats they have access to, and the third is about protection and regeneration. And the question has been for us, like, can there be livelihoods that take into account all of these? Because as adults, like we spend like on average one third of a lifetime engaging in our work or job or livelihood. So can they be oriented towards social, ecological, and personal well-being? Has been a question. And we have been exploring such livelihoods across sectors. So for us, livelihoods is about like aliveness in livelihoods, where life is at the center, and our livelihood being just one part of it. Because one pattern that we have been seeing of late is that like for most people, uh, they choose a livelihood, and their life is being designed around their work or job. But can we probably like shift this? Can we look design our lives at first, as in can we look at like what are the values and principles that we want to be guided by in our life, and what is the kind of life that we wish to lead, and that being at the center, and our livelihood being a part of it, while at the same time like making the pursuer of the livelihood and also the planet experience aliveness, I mean something that nourishes and nurtures both the individual and the planet, and of course oriented towards social, ecological, and personal well-being. So would like to introduce like some kind of work that's happening like across sectors, and these stories have also been uh, were also documented through the 52 Parinde Fellowship we run for youth in the country. So in learning and education, like the first story here is that of like enabling the spirit to soar, is that of this parent and educator Fatima Chapalwala in Palampur, Himachal, who has been running an after-school learning center, um, with where the learners or the students they have the opportunity to learn hands-on, and involve their head, heart, and hands, like all three in their learning. The second one here, learning the organic way, is about two brothers, Anil and Nanda, in Chittoor, Andhra Pradesh, who are also like farmers primarily, and they also run a learning center where the students, where or the young learners or children in their village engage with the rest of nature, engage in farming, engage in forestation activities, and various other hands-on activities through which they explore their own identities and work for the well-being of their own village. Mm. The third one here is that of Mary Lydia from Kerala, who has been working with this initiative named Adishakti, uh, who a group that has been ensuring right to education for Dalit and Adivasi children in Kerala, in their like access to education and access to higher education, ensuring that. Uh, the fourth one here, School of Dreams, is the story of Pranab Sinha from um, Dantewada in Chhattisgarh, who has been working with the tribal communities there. He runs a school, Sapnum Ki Shala, which also acknowledges and celebrates tribal cultures, and uses the tribe and also includes and employs the tribal ways of understanding the world in the school curriculum. In environment and ecology, the first one here is what do the forest dwellers want to say? So this is a story on the Janukurba community in Karnataka, in Nagarhole, Karnataka, um, who has been trying to ensure their right to access to the forest. and living in the forest, and coexisting with the other beings in the forest, and while at the same time conserving them. And second one here, the confluence of academia and traditional knowledge systems. It's a story of Dr. KG Srija from Kerala, who has been working with the coastal communities in Kerala, coastal communities who are affected by the climate change, and using and equipping or empowering them to record and use scientific information um, to understand about the changes in ecology, and so that they can address them better. And when it comes to food and farming, there are again different kinds of work that's happening across the country. It's decoding the politics of and in and about food. It's a story of Puri Vyas from Gujarat, who's a farmer and who's also a professor, a college professor who teaches on the politics of food, uh, while forming women's farming collectives in her locality. The second is that of Rajneesh or Raja, a nomad who has been traveling across the country and helping different communities to set up organic farms in their locality. Third is that of Dinesh, a resident of Pondicherry, who is an organic farmer and also been helping the farmers in his neighborhood to shift towards organic farming. And when it comes to arts-based facilitation, again, we see different approaches. And the first one here is that of Shaji and Simita, who has been running this initiative in their village in Palakkad, Kerala, named Brahmani, where they use theater as a tool to engage with the children, and where the children themselves creates stories about on the pressing issues in their locality, and try to find solutions through conversations and the theater, the performances that they create. And the Mystic Bus on the Road of Revolution is about this group called Manzil Mystics in Delhi, who has been using music as a tool to facilitate change in Delhi. They have been working with a lot of government schools and under-resourced communities, and imparting learning through music. And when it comes to creating for forming social enterprises, there are several people who are realigning to certain values, uh, values that are about profit sharing with the community and ownership of the community, and meaningful participation of the local community, and so on. So first one here is that about Lubna Rafiki, who has been working in Kashmir on her initiative called SAG Eco Village. And second is about Rupsi Garg from Punjab, who has been working with the weaving community there. And third is that about a village community called Farmer Share in central Kerala, who has been working on the philosophy based on the philosophy of Gram Swaraj, Gandhi's idea of Gram Swaraj or village self-reliance, and been creating a lot of rural livelihoods on in and around food in and around food and farming, on like through weaving, natural dyeing, paper making, pottery, and so on. So the question that we have been asking ourselves has been like, what makes one's work and ways of being doing and a livelihood? Can like is it about differentiating between different kinds of work or not? And the answer that comes to us is that the social context in which one's skills or expertise are practiced, that makes it a livelihood. And so for this rig, we would like to share the story of a certain initiative in Sitlingi Valley in Tamil Nadu, in the Dharmapuri district of Tamil Nadu, tribal health initiative. The journey begins with like a doctor couple relocating, like a doctor couple from Kerala relocating themselves to this village in Sitlingi Valley in 1993. And the reason for this was that they wanted to use their skills or expertise where it was needed the most. And Sitlingi Valley at that time, the infant mortality rate was one of the highest in the country, 142, which means that if 1,000 children are born in a year in Sitlingi Valley, 142 of them die within the same year. And the maternal mortality rate was also one of the highest in the country at that time. So they worked towards equipping what they call village auxiliaries, like women auxiliaries, like equipping women in the community to take care of the health of the village. And within a few years, they were able to bring down the IMR to about 20 and then to about 5. Now it is almost zero. And in about like early 2000s, when they saw that like they have achieved a certain health swaraj or self-reliance in terms of addressing their health issues, they wanted to do more and they wanted to see what was the next pressing issue in the community. So they did this whole Padayatra and interacted with the villagers there. And they realized that a lot of them were in debt. So the villagers, they were largely agrarian. They were into like farming and agriculture, and the majority of them were in debt. And they also saw a pattern that it were the people who were practicing the modern agricultural practices, which came like post Green Revolution, like of using like buying seeds every year and employing and using chemical-based fertilizers and so on. They were the ones who were the most in debt because every year they had to buy the seeds. Every year they had to buy pesticides, insecticides, and fertilizers. And that was contributing to the debt. And there were several people who had been practicing traditional methods of farming, and they did not have any debt, and they were quite happy. But it took them about 2 years to convert like 4 people to organic farming. But today, Sitlingi Organic Farmers Association is thriving with about 700 farmers attached to it, and where they are not just producing a variety of foods like from rice to millets to different vegetables to cotton to say ginger and turmeric and so on. They also are into value addition of food, and which is helping them earn better. And from the same land came this initiative, another initiative named Porgai, when they realized that like 2 of the communities there, they were Lombardy communities. So Lombardis were originally from Afghanistan, and they were a traveling nomad community. And it was during the Mughal period that they settled in different parts of the country. And this was one of the southernmost parts where they settled in. And for generations, they had been like practicing agriculture. And for about 2 generations, their their traditional craft, hand embroidery, had been lost. And so they tried to revive it through 2 old women, like who were 70 plus. And so these 2 old grandmothers, they had seen their grandmothers doing it when they were children, and they did have the material in the home, and so they tried to revive the art through them. And today, Porgai offers or creates livelihood to more than 60 women in the community through the Lombardy hand embroidery technique that they use. So we see that one's work skills or expertise could be anything, but the social context where they apply it makes it an livelihood, and and that is what contributes to change. So through the different stories from across the country and examples, we also see that livelihoods, they have the capacity to shift the pattern from world as we know it to the world as we want it to be, to shift the pattern from extraction and consumption to conservation and regeneration, to shift the pattern from profit for a few to prosperity for all, to shift the pattern from a scarcity mindset to an abundance mindset. Um, because since our childhoods, we have been told that there aren't enough resources, that one has to be agile and aggressive enough to grab them, access them. Um, but at its dysfunctional stage, we also see what it leads to is overconsumption, and extraction. And if we are able to align ourselves as or self-organize ourselves as communities, as local communities, as um, people with common grounded values, that we will be able to move from the scarcity mindset to abundance mindset, where we can share and grow together, and also shift the pattern from self-care to self and community care, because the realization has been that no form of care is just self-care. Any form of care involves at least another person, and it in many cases it also involves the rest of nature. um, so shifting towards how we can also take care of ourselves and each other as communities, and shifting the pattern from competition to collaboration and cooperation, and of course dominance over nature to coexisting with the rest of nature, seeing ourselves as part of the nature and engaging in that manner. So we see that at personal levels, livelihoods, the pursuit of our livelihoods involves intentional living and experiencing aliveness, and committing to lifelong learning, because the world around us is also shifting and changing rapidly, dynamically, and constantly we need to realign ourselves, and employ continue to build our own understanding of continue to build our understanding of our own lives and the rest of the world. And we see that as more and more people engages or involves in such livelihoods, it would eventually aid localization and help build strong and resilient communities. Because also during the COVID time, we saw that the it were the communities who had worked on their self-reliance, local self-reliance. They were the ones who uh, were not affected much with the lockdown. And we also saw a lot of a lot of local initiatives shifted their work towards working towards that long-term resilience. Um, and we see this, and at the planet level, it will eventually help and aid in the well-being of the planet and address the global inequities and the climate crisis. So the stories of some of those initiatives that I shared part of the presentation is also available in this book, um, which has been an output of the fellows of the first batch, the first cohort of the 52 Parinde Fellowship we run for youth who are interested in pursuing similar livelihoods. And we are also trying to build an ecosystem in and around livelihoods, which will involve the first draft is published already, and you may check it out. And so it has resources to initiate one's own learning across sectors, and eventually through the platform we would want to offer different in workshops, host gatherings, and host different courses, online courses on both online and offline, and offer organized information on how to, if someone is interested in pursuing a certain kind of livelihood, how does one do that. Beginning with making available resources on, like to read and watch, like from reading materials to recordings to documentaries and so on. And from there, like information on initiatives that can host people like who wants to learn about certain, like some of these sectors, whether it be agroecology or conservation or art space facilitation and so on. And it and will also be a space where like opportunities in the sector is also announced, like opportunities in terms of volunteering, working, interning, and so on. So this is something that we intend to build ahead, and we are also inviting your support and involvement in this process. So with that, I will take a pause and thank you. And if you have any questions or if you would like to move to any discussions, we can probably do that now. Thank you.